There is a question that almost nobody asks themselves, yet the answer determines whether they live with peace or spend their entire lives chasing it. What if the greatest obstacle in your life is not the people who disappointed you, not the opportunities you missed, not even the hardships you've endured? What if the greatest obstacle has been the way you've learned to think? Most people wake up every morning believing they are preparing for life, but what they are really doing is preparing for battles that never arrive. Before their feet even touch the floor, their minds are already somewhere else. They're replaying yesterday's mistakes, imagining tomorrow's problems, wondering what someone meant by a message they received hours ago, quietly arguing with conversations that have already ended. By the time the day begins, they are already exhausted, not because life attacked them, but because their own thoughts did. And perhaps you've felt that without ever realizing it. You've smiled while carrying invisible weight. You've sat in a room full of people while your mind was somewhere else entirely. You've looked at a perfectly ordinary day and somehow convinced yourself that disaster was waiting just around the corner. The strange thing is that your mind does this because it believes it's protecting you. It tells you that worrying is preparation, that overthinking is responsibility, that expecting the worst will somehow soften the blow if it ever comes. But has it? Think carefully. How many nights have you lost sleep over things that never happened? How many fears have disappeared the moment reality finally arrived? How many times has your imagination been far crueler than life itself? If you're honest, the answer is probably more times than you can count. That is why the ancient Stoics were so different from most people today. They understood something that modern society keeps forgetting. A peaceful life is not created by controlling the world. It is created by mastering the mind that experiences the world. That sounds simple. Until life tests you, until someone betrays your trust, until the future becomes uncertain, until your plans collapse without warning. That is when philosophy stops being something you read and becomes something you live. More than 2,000 years have passed since Marcus Aurelius wrote his private thoughts under candlelight. Kingdoms have risen and disappeared. Empires have turned into ruins. Entire civilizations have faded into history. Yet one struggle has never changed. The struggle inside the human mind. Different clothes, different technology, different problems, the same restless thoughts, the same fears, the same search for peace. Today, we're going to uncover 7 timeless Stoic truths that have the power to change the way you see yourself, your problems, and the world around you. These are not motivational slogans. They're not empty promises. They're principles that have survived centuries because they continue to reveal something uncomfortable. Most suffering begins long before reality ever arrives. And if you stay with me until the end, I believe you'll walk away seeing your own life through an entirely different lens. Because the final truth is one that most people never discover, yet it may be the one that finally frees you from the burdens you've been carrying for years. Before we continue, if you're someone who wants to build a calmer, stronger, and more disciplined mind, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every week, we explore timeless wisdom that helps you face modern life with greater clarity and resilience. And if these conversations resonate with you, your support helps this community continue to grow. Now, imagine standing in front of a perfectly still lake. The water reflects everything with absolute clarity. The mountains, the sky, the trees, even your own face. Then someone throws a single stone into the water. Instantly, the reflection disappears. The mountains haven't moved. The sky hasn't changed. Nothing in the world has become different. Only the surface of the water. Your mind is no different. When it is calm, reality becomes clear. When it is disturbed, everything appears distorted. The tragedy is that most people spend their lives trying to calm the world instead of calming the water within themselves. They blame circumstances for every emotion. They wait for life to become easier. They hope that one day, when everything is finally in order, peace will magically appear. But peace has never arrived that way. Not for kings, not for philosophers, not for anyone. Because peace is not the reward for controlling life. It is the reward for understanding it. And the first truth you'll discover may challenge almost everything you've been taught about happiness, success, and control. Once you truly understand it, you'll begin to notice something remarkable. The world around you may remain exactly the same, but you won't. Most people believe that peace will arrive the day life finally goes according to plan, when they earn more money, when the right person walks into their life, when they stop making mistakes, when everyone finally understands them. So they spend years chasing a version of the future that never quite arrives. Every time they reach one destination, the mind quietly moves the finish line a little farther away. If I can just get through this week, if I can just solve this problem, if I can just become successful, then another week comes. Another problem appears. Another mountain rises on the horizon. Without realizing it, they've made peace dependent on conditions that are constantly changing. But the Stoics saw something that most people never notice. They understood that the world has never promised certainty. The seasons change without asking your permission. People change their minds. Opportunities appear and disappear. Health can be taken in a single moment. Even the people you love most are only visitors in your life for a little while. If everything around you is constantly changing, why would you build your peace on things that cannot stay the same? Imagine building a magnificent house on the shore of the ocean. You spend years making it beautiful. Every brick is placed with care. Every room is exactly how you imagined it. But you ignore one simple truth. The ground beneath it keeps shifting. No matter how beautiful the house becomes, its foundation is unstable. Sooner or later, the cracks begin to appear. Most people live exactly like that. They build their emotional lives on foundations they cannot control. The approval of strangers, the opinions of family, their career, their appearance, their possessions. Then they're shocked when life changes. Yet life has always changed. The problem was never the storm. The problem was where the house was built. Marcus Aurelius ruled one of the greatest empires in history. If anyone had a reason to believe they could control the world, it was him. He commanded armies. He made decisions that shaped nations. Millions depended on his leadership. Yet every evening, he reminded himself of something remarkably humble. The only mind he could truly govern was his own. Think about how different your life would feel if you accepted that today, not as an idea, but as reality. How much energy would return to you if you stopped trying to control what another person thinks? How much peace would you recover if you stopped demanding guarantees from tomorrow? How many hours would you gain if you stopped arguing with things that have already happened? The truth is, we often mistake control for security. We believe that if we think hard enough, plan carefully enough, prepare thoroughly enough, we can eliminate uncertainty. But uncertainty has never been the enemy. It is simply part of being alive. A sailor does not waste his strength trying to stop the wind. He learns how to adjust his sails. A farmer cannot command the rain. He prepares the soil anyway. An archer releases the arrow, knowing that once it leaves the bow, the wind will decide part of its journey. The Stoics admired people like this because they understood a simple but life-changing principle. Give everything to your effort. Expect nothing from the outcome. That isn't pessimism, it is freedom. Because once your peace depends on your actions instead of the results, nobody can steal it from you. Failure becomes a lesson. Success becomes gratitude instead of entitlement. Delays become opportunities to practice patience. Even disappointment loses its power because it no longer defines your worth. This is where most people misunderstand Stoicism. They think it's about becoming cold, emotionless, detached from life. But the Stoics were never trying to feel less. They were trying to suffer less from things that never belonged to them in the first place. There is enormous freedom in realizing that you can give your absolute best without demanding that life obey your plans. That kind of freedom cannot be bought. It cannot be inherited. It has to be practiced every single day. And perhaps that's why so few people ever experience it. Because letting go feels terrifying at first. The mind whispers, if I stop worrying, I'll lose control. But the opposite is true. The moment you stop trying to control everything, you finally begin to control yourself. And that is where real strength begins. Yet there is another trap that quietly steals even more peace than the desire for control. In fact, you've probably fallen into it today without even noticing. It's so common that most people mistake it for normal thinking. But once you recognize it, you'll never trust every thought that enters your mind again. Have you ever noticed how quickly your mind can turn a small uncertainty into a complete disaster? A friend doesn't answer your message for a few hours, and suddenly you've imagined a dozen reasons why. Your boss says, "Can we talk tomorrow?" And before the conversation even happens, you've already convinced yourself that something is wrong. A loved one seems unusually quiet, and your thoughts begin writing stories that have no evidence, only fear. It happens so naturally that most people never stop to question it. They assume that because a thought appears in their mind, it must deserve their attention. But your mind is not a reporter, it is a storyteller, and storytellers are not always interested in the truth. Sometimes they are interested in keeping you safe. The problem is that the mind often mistakes safety for certainty. Whenever it cannot predict the future, it fills the empty spaces with fear. It would rather invent a painful answer than accept that it simply doesn't know. Think back to the last year of your life. How many things did you worry about that never happened? How many conversations did you rehearse that unfolded completely differently? How many sleepless nights were spent preparing for battles that never arrived? If someone had been counting every anxious prediction your mind made, you might discover something surprising. Most of them were wrong. Not because you're foolish, not because you're weak, but because fear has always been a terrible fortune teller. Imagine walking through an old castle at night. The hallways are dark. Every shadow looks like a threat. Every distant sound makes your heart beat faster. You grip a candle tightly as you move forward, convinced that danger is hiding behind every corner. Then the morning sun rises. The monsters disappear. The shadows become ordinary furniture. The terrifying figure in the hallway turns out to be nothing more than an old coat hanging on a stand. The castle never changed, only the light did. Your thoughts work the same way. Fear creates darkness. Awareness brings light. The Stoics knew that the mind becomes dangerous when it is left unquestioned. Epictetus taught that we should not automatically believe our first impressions. Instead, we should pause, look carefully, ask whether what we're feeling is based on reality or simply on interpretation. That pause may only last a few seconds, but those few seconds can change the direction of an entire day. Imagine how many arguments could be avoided, how many friendships could be saved, how many nights of anxiety could disappear if people learned to question their first reaction instead of obeying it. Modern life trains us to react instantly. Someone posts an opinion, we respond. Someone criticizes us, we defend ourselves. Something unexpected happens, we panic. But wisdom has never been found in speed. It is found in stillness. The strongest people are not those who always have the fastest answer. They are the ones who know when not to answer at all. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to wait before judging any event, because the event itself was rarely the source of suffering. The story he attached to it was, "That is a lesson our generation desperately needs." Today, people carry entire worlds inside small screens. One headline can ruin a morning. One comment can destroy confidence. One comparison can make years of progress feel worthless. Without realizing it, they hand strangers the keys to their inner peace. But your attention is sacred. Not everything deserves to enter your mind. Not every opinion deserves your emotion. Not every criticism deserves your energy. One of the greatest acts of self-respect is deciding what you will no longer carry. And if you've stayed with me this far, I hope you'll do one small thing before we continue. Take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not because it's just another YouTube video, but because we're building a community of people who refuse to let the noise of the world control the peace within them. If that's the kind of person you're becoming, I'd be honored to have you on this journey. Now here's something even more surprising. Even after people learn to question their thoughts, even after they stop believing every fearful story their mind creates, many still remain trapped. Why? Because the deepest prison isn't built from fear, it's built from resistance. And once you understand what that means, you'll never look at pain the same way again. There is a strange habit that almost every human being shares. Whenever life hurts us, our first instinct is to fight what has already happened. We replay the moment. We imagine different endings. We convince ourselves that if we think about it long enough, somehow the past will loosen its grip on us. But have you ever noticed that the past never argues back? It never explains itself. It never apologizes. It simply remains exactly where it is. Yet we continue exhausting ourselves, trying to negotiate with something that can no longer hear us. Perhaps someone betrayed your trust. Perhaps you lost an opportunity you believed would change your life. Perhaps you watched someone you loved walk away, leaving behind questions that were never answered. The pain was real. No philosophy should ever pretend otherwise. The Stoics were never asking us to ignore pain. They were asking us a much more difficult question. Now that it has happened, what will you do with it? That single question separates people who grow from suffering from those who become trapped inside it. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack through a long journey. At first, you barely notice the weight, but as the miles pass, your shoulders begin to ache. Your breathing becomes harder. Every step demands more effort than the last. Finally, someone asks why you're carrying so much. You unzip the bag. Inside are broken pieces of things that can never be repaired. Old arguments, missed opportunities, people who left years ago, mistakes you've already learned from. You look at them and realize something shocking. No one forced you to keep carrying them. Somewhere along the way, you simply forgot that putting them down was an option. This is what resistance does. It convinces you that holding on is strength, that refusing to move on is loyalty, that if you let go, you're somehow saying what happened didn't matter. But letting go has never meant forgetting. It means refusing to allow yesterday to steal another tomorrow. Marcus Aurelius faced losses that most of us cannot imagine. He watched wars consume nations. He buried children. He endured betrayal from people he trusted. Yet through all of it, he kept returning to one quiet truth. You cannot begin a new chapter while insisting on rereading the last one. Life is always moving. The only question is whether your mind is moving with it. Think about a river after a storm. Branches fall into the current. Leaves swirl on the surface. For a while, the water looks chaotic, but the river never stops flowing. It doesn't cling to the branches. It doesn't argue with the rocks. It carries everything forward. That is why, no matter how violent the storm, the river eventually becomes clear again. Now compare that to a pond. Nothing moves. Everything settles to the bottom. The water grows stagnant. Not because more storms came, but because nothing was allowed to flow. Many people live like that pond. They collect every insult, every regret, every disappointment, every failure. Years pass, and they're still carrying words spoken by someone who no longer remembers saying them. They're still punishing themselves for mistakes that an older version of them made. They're still asking why, long after life has already moved on. Imagine how much lighter your life would become if you stopped demanding explanations from the past. What if healing doesn't begin when you finally receive closure from someone else? What if it begins the moment you stop waiting for it? That may be one of the hardest truths you'll ever accept, because the people who hurt you may never apologize. The opportunities you lost may never return. Some questions may never be answered. And yet, your life can still become extraordinary. Not because the past changed, but because you did. Real freedom begins the moment you understand that acceptance is not saying, "I wanted this." Acceptance is saying, "This is reality, and I refuse to waste the rest of my life arguing with it." There is incredible strength in those words. Not loud strength, not the kind that needs recognition, a quiet strength. The kind that allows someone to smile after heartbreak, to begin again after failure, to trust again after betrayal, to hope again after disappointment. That is the kind of strength the Stoics admired, not because it made life easier, but because it made the soul unbreakable. And yet, even after someone learns to let go of the past, there is one invisible force that continues stealing their peace every single day. Most people never notice it. In fact, they're feeding it right now without realizing it, because the greatest thief of a meaningful life is not pain, it's distraction. And once you see how it quietly controls your days, you'll never give your attention away so easily again. Every day, something is competing for ownership of your mind, not just your time, your mind. From the moment you wake up, invisible hands begin pulling at your attention. A notification demands that you look. A headline demands that you worry. A stranger's opinion demands that you react. Before you've even had the chance to think your own thoughts, the world has already begun thinking for you. Most people believe they're making choices throughout the day, but if they were honest, they'd realize they're mostly reacting. Reacting to what someone said, reacting to what someone posted, reacting to what someone else achieved. They call it staying informed. They call it keeping up. But somewhere along the way, they stopped asking a simple question: who is deciding where my attention goes? Because wherever your attention goes, your life quietly follows. Imagine you're holding a lantern in the middle of a vast forest. The light only shines where you choose to point it. If you keep aiming it at every noise in the distance, every movement in the bushes, every shadow between the trees, you'll spend the entire night chasing things that were never a threat. But if you keep the light on the path beneath your feet, something remarkable happens. You keep moving, step after step, without panic, without confusion, without wasting energy. Your attention is that lantern. The quality of your life depends on where you choose to shine it. The world has become incredibly skilled at stealing it. Companies compete for it. News outlets compete for it. Social media competes for it. Even people compete for it. Because attention has become one of the most valuable resources on earth. Yet most people give it away as if it costs nothing. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that he always had the power to decide what deserved a place inside his mind. Think about how different modern life would feel if we practiced that today. Would every piece of bad news deserve your peace? Would every criticism deserve your emotion? Would every opinion deserve your response? Probably not. Yet countless people surrender their inner calm over words spoken by strangers they'll never meet. A single comment ruins an entire day. One comparison steals years of confidence. One rumor becomes a sleepless night. Not because those things are powerful, but because attention gave them power. Whatever you repeatedly feed grows stronger. Feed fear, fear grows. Feed anger, anger grows. Feed comparison. Nothing you achieve will ever feel enough. But feed wisdom, feed patience, feed gratitude, and slowly, almost without noticing, your mind begins changing its shape. This is why the Stoics guarded their attention so carefully. They understood that character is built one thought at a time. Every moment you choose where to focus, you're also choosing who you're becoming. Imagine planting two gardens. One is watered every morning. The other is ignored. Months later, the first is filled with flowers. The second is covered in weeds. Neither garden became what it is overnight. It happened through repeated attention. The human mind works exactly the same way. Every repeated thought plants another seed. The question is, what have you been watering? Have you been feeding resentment? Have you been feeding insecurity? Have you been feeding the voice that constantly tells you you're behind everyone else? Or have you been feeding the part of yourself that wants to grow? Because both gardens cannot thrive at the same time. Sooner or later, one overtakes the other. And here's something most people never realize. Protecting your attention is not selfish, it's responsibility. You cannot offer peace to your family if your own mind is constantly at war. You cannot become wise while consuming endless distraction. You cannot build an extraordinary life with ordinary habits of attention. The life you dream about isn't created by one giant decision. It's created by thousands of tiny moments when you choose what deserves your focus. If you've stayed with me this far, I want to sincerely thank you. It tells me you're not looking for another quick burst of motivation. You're looking for something much deeper. You're looking for principles that can stay with you long after this video ends. If that's why you're here, I'd love for you to subscribe and become part of this community. Every week, we explore timeless wisdom designed to help you build a stronger, calmer, and more disciplined mind. And if one idea has already changed the way you think today, let me know by leaving a like. It helps this message reach people who may need it just as much as you do. Now, there is one final illusion that keeps people trapped. Even those who learn to control their attention, even those who stop arguing with the past, even those who begin mastering their thoughts, many still struggle to find lasting peace. Why? Because they're fighting someone who no longer exists. And until they understand that, no amount of wisdom will ever feel like enough. There is one battle that almost everyone fights in silence. It doesn't happen in the workplace. It doesn't happen in relationships. It doesn't happen in the outside world. It happens between the person you used to be and the person you're trying to become. Most people believe their past follows them because it's too powerful to escape. But that's not entirely true. Your past cannot walk. It cannot speak. It cannot reach into today unless you invite it. Yet every morning, millions of people unknowingly do exactly that. They wake up and introduce themselves to yesterday. I'm the one who failed. I'm the one who was rejected. I'm the one who always ruins everything. At first, those words seem harmless, just thoughts passing through the mind. But thoughts repeated often enough stop feeling like opinions. They begin to feel like identity, and identity is powerful. Because once you believe something about yourself, your actions quietly begin proving it true. A man who believes he is incapable of change will stop trying long before success has the chance to find him. A woman who believes she is unworthy of love may unknowingly push away the very people who genuinely care for her. Not because destiny decided it, because identity did. Imagine an actor who has played the same character for 30 years. Every day he wears the same costume, speaks the same lines, moves the same way. Eventually, something strange begins to happen. He forgets where the performance ends and where he begins. Many people are living exactly like that. Years ago, life handed them a painful role. The abandoned one, the anxious one, the angry one, the victim, the failure. At first, it was only a season, but little by little, they began wearing that role every day. Now it feels impossible to take off. The Stoics refused to live that way. They believed that every sunrise offered something far more valuable than another 24 hours. It offered another opportunity to choose who you would become. Marcus Aurelius never woke up asking, "Who was I yesterday?" He asked himself something much more useful. What kind of person will I choose to be today? That question changes everything, because it shifts your attention away from history and toward responsibility. Not responsibility for what happened, responsibility for what happens next. Think about a sculptor standing before an enormous block of marble. To everyone else, it looks like a lifeless stone, heavy, cold, ordinary. But the sculptor sees something hidden inside, not because the statue already exists, but because he is willing to remove everything that doesn't belong. With every strike of the hammer, another unnecessary piece falls away. Not because he's creating something new, because he's revealing what was there all along. Perhaps becoming wiser works the same way. Perhaps peace isn't something you have to find. Perhaps courage isn't something you have to earn. Perhaps strength isn't something the world gives you. Perhaps those qualities have always been inside you, buried beneath years of fear, comparison, regret, and beliefs that were never truly yours. Growth is often misunderstood. People imagine becoming someone better means adding more knowledge, more success, more possessions, more achievements. But sometimes growth happens in the opposite direction. You become stronger by letting go. You become calmer by expecting less. You become freer by carrying less. You become wiser by needing less. The strongest tree in the forest is not strong because it collected everything around it. It is strong because its roots learned where to hold and where to release. Life asks the same of us, not to hold on forever, but to recognize what is no longer helping us grow. Maybe you've been holding on to guilt that has already taught its lesson. Maybe you've been carrying anger towards someone who has already forgotten what happened. Maybe you've been trying to become a new person while refusing to let the old one rest. If so, ask yourself one honest question. Who would I become if I stopped introducing myself through my wounds? Sit with that for a moment, because your answer may change more than this entire video. The future has never demanded that you be perfect. It has only asked that you keep walking. One decision, one habit, one courageous choice at a time. And perhaps that is the greatest gift Stoicism offers. Not a life without pain, but a life where pain no longer decides who you are. We're almost at the end of this journey together. But before we finish, there is one final realization that ties everything you've heard into a single truth. It's the lesson that transforms philosophy from something you admire into something you live. And if you truly understand it, you'll never look at your life the same way again. After everything we've explored together, one question remains. If peace has never depended on controlling the world, if fear has always been louder than reality, if the past no longer has the power to define you, then what has been standing between you and the life you've been searching for? Perhaps the answer is simpler than you imagined. Perhaps you've been waiting for permission. Permission to let go. Permission to begin again. Permission to stop carrying burdens that were never yours to keep. But life has never required your permission to move forward. Every sunrise arrives whether you're ready or not. Every season changes without asking if you're prepared. Time keeps moving with remarkable patience, quietly reminding us that nothing remains the same forever. The only question is whether you will move with it. Think about a traveler standing at the edge of a long road. Behind him are footprints stretching farther than he can see. Some remind him of joy, others remind him of failure. Some bring gratitude, others still carry pain. He could spend the rest of his life staring at those footprints, trying to understand every step he ever took. Or he could turn around, face the road ahead, and take one more step. That single step will never erase where he has been, but it will decide where he is going. That is the quiet power of Stoicism. It doesn't promise a life without hardship. It doesn't promise that people will always understand you. It doesn't promise that your plans will unfold exactly as you hoped. Instead, it offers something far more valuable: the ability to remain steady when life refuses to be. Because storms will come. Some days will test your patience. Some seasons will challenge your faith. Some moments will ask more of you than you think you can give. Those moments are not signs that you've failed. They are invitations to practice everything you've learned. Anyone can remain calm when life is easy. Anyone can feel confident when everything is going their way. But character is revealed when circumstances refuse to cooperate. That is where the Stoics became extraordinary, not because they escaped suffering, but because suffering no longer decided the quality of their character. Imagine yourself years from now. You wake before the world becomes noisy. The same responsibilities still exist. Life is still unpredictable. People are still imperfect. Problems still appear without warning. Yet something has changed. Your mind no longer rushes to fear. You no longer waste hours arguing with yesterday. You no longer measure your worth by someone else's approval. You no longer believe every anxious thought that passes through your mind. Instead, you pause. You breathe. You choose your response with intention. Not because life became easier, because you became stronger. That is the transformation worth pursuing. Not becoming someone the world admires, but becoming someone who can look in the mirror each morning with quiet confidence, knowing that no matter what today brings, your peace no longer depends on circumstances. It depends on your character, and character is built one choice at a time, one disciplined thought, one patient response, one courageous decision, every single day. So when this video ends, don't rush to the next one. Give yourself 1 minute, just one. Sit somewhere quiet. No phone, no music, no distractions. Ask yourself a question that only you can answer. What is one thing I've been holding on to that no longer deserves a place in my life? Maybe it's resentment. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's the need to control everything. Maybe it's a version of yourself that has already served its purpose. Whatever comes to mind, have the courage to set it down. Because the strongest people are not the ones who carry the heaviest burdens. They are the ones who know which burdens were never theirs to carry. If today's message spoke to you, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which Stoic truth stayed with you the most, and why? I read every comment, and hearing your perspective helps shape these conversations for everyone in this community. And if you're committed to building a calmer, wiser, and more disciplined mind, subscribe and join us. Every week, we explore timeless ideas that don't just inspire you for a moment, they help you transform the way you think, the way you live, and the way you face every challenge life places in your path. Remember this, the world may never become quieter, life may never become easier, people may never become more predictable, but none of those things determine your peace. Your peace begins the moment you stop asking the world to become different, and begin becoming different yourself. Until next time, protect your mind, guard your character, walk your path with courage, and let wisdom, not fear, be the voice that guides your life.